Hello, this is the Simple Stokes Creo tutorial number 3, and we will be showing you how to make a side rail today. So first, you're going to click the new, part solid, just like before. We're going to title this side underscore rail underscore tutorial. Okay, let's display the datum planes. So, we're going to start just how we did the back rail. We're going to do the first extrusion, placement, define the front plane, sketch view, file system, pull up our 2 inches by 1 inch. Notice the plus is still by my cursor. Remember to change the scale to 1 and then just drag it to the center. Complete. Good. Alright. You want the mid plane selected, that way it's a nice symmetrical piece. Now this rail is going to be 34 inches long as opposed to the back rail, which was 26. Now the max for FRC is 38 inches, so we like to have 2 inches of wiggle room. So we'll have the front or the back rail would be probably somewhere here, which will add an inch onto it, and then you'll have a front rail which will add an inch onto it. So this middle rail needs to be 34 inches long. Okay. Hide plane displays. Alright, so we have the side rail already going. So we still need to do the cutouts for the wheels, because in this rail what makes it different from the back rail is that it'll actually have wheels in them. So I'm going to drop in my center line. Dimension the normal. We're going to make it, now remember, Creo does math for you, so you can just do 34 divided by 2, which is 17 inches. Lock that. Okay, now this side rail is for a 6-wheel drive West Cup style, which means the center wheel needs to be dropped lower than the outer two. So we're going to input a center line just below this normal center line, which is directly halfway through. So we need to dimension this now so that we can sketch a circle that is dropped compared to the other two. I like dropping the wheel 1/16 of an inch. So it's very small, but just enough so you get some, so you're not having all those wheels on the ground, otherwise you won't be able to turn. Alright, so we're inserting a circle. Let me go no hidden here so you can see. We're inserting a circle right on this second center line. Oops, I have construction mode turned on. So construction mode just means that I can turn it geometry, so now it's actually there. If I click it again, I can go construction, and now it just shows me a reference of what I want. So we have construction mode on. We're going to put a 4-inch, because that's how big your wheel is going to be. So you can see how your wheel is going to be sitting compared to the rest of the frame. That is just for reference though, so it won't actually appear in the extrusion remove material. Now remember, our standard bearing in FRC that we use is 1.125 inches. So we're going to lock that dimension. I like to keep this wheel not locked so that I can feel free to change it. Like if we want to see what a 6-inch wheel will do, we can just change that dimension. If we want to see what a 3-inch wheel will do, we can just modify it so we can play around with our design. So that's in there. I'm going to turn shading with edges back on. Okay. Remove material through all. So that way we have our center hole dropped a bit. Alright, so that's where the middle wheel will be placed. Now the outer wheels are a bit different. We're still going to do the extrusion like normal. However, instead of having a hole for the bearing, we're going to have slots. Now, what this is for is those tensioner systems. Remember when we made the back rail, we had those special holes that we had made that the bolt would go through. Those will go right to these bearing blocks in these sliders. So that will make the whole wheel system will be able to slide and tension that chain. Alright, so we put a center line down here 34 inches away, so that way it's right on the edge. I'm going to do my center rectangle. Zoom in here. Now just place it anywhere right now, so that way you can see it and modify the dimensions. So let me zoom in here. We go no hidden so you can see it a bit better. Alright, so this is 1.6 right now, but you want it a little bit closer. So I'm going to put this at 3/4 of an inch, or 0.75 inches. And I'm going to lock that placement. Now I can play around with this, to kind of see where I like it. The width, or the height right here, of the bearing block is going to be 1.3 inches. And we will make that part later, and it'll fit right in this slot. So I'm going to lock that. And the slot needs to be 4 inches to give that 1 inch of slot so you can chain tension your chain and have the slider block just slide back and forth, just enough so you can tension it. But not too much, just enough so it's a taut chain. So that's one done, but there needs to be one on this other side. Now what we could do is there is a mirror tool, so you can extrude and then mirror across that center plane right here. I don't like doing that. I like to make sure that I have control over the CAD in pretty much any way I want. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to have to put a negative sign in there so that way it knows that it's on this side of the plane. But notice that it goes away as soon as I put that negative. It just tells it that it needs to be on this side of this line. Okay, so I can also do some normal lengths here, make that 4, and notice it's saying something's wrong here because it's already saying that it's even to that other one. So like I can change that, so I want to undo that. Alright, so you can put a center line to check your work. If you drop that in, it should run right parallel with that, and then if you put in another center line down here, it should be right parallel with this over here. So this is how you know that your sketch looks good. You kind of zoom out, you look. I had made these equal already because it snapped to it. So basically it says all the dimensions on this side correspond over here. The only thing that I had to add in was the distance away from the edge of the rail. So I'm going to turn the shading with edges back on. We're going to complete the sketch. Notice the orange blocks coming out. They do need to be removed material through all. Perfect. So we have our slots right now. Now if you look closely, you can see there's sharp corners here. We want to try and get rid of those. Now a new tool that I'd like to bring up, it's under the engineering, is the round tool. I'm going to do one of these so that you can see the difference. So you can kind of see the materials being, kind of rounded instead of a sharp corner, which basically means that it's going to hug a bit better on that slider. So you can just go around. All the slots need to have this, so that way your bearing block that we'll make later will have the same round in it, so it sits in there very nice when you tension it all the way. So you can also see that I'm just going right through the other part. I don't really need to rotate the entire configuration. I can kind of just highlight over it. See how that slot is made? I can just highlight over right over where that slot is, and the Creo knows what you're trying to get, and you just select it. Now I'm holding control down for all of these, because if you hold control, it'll allow you just to keep adding new references without having to add a new set. If I would not hold control, I could add a new set of rounds in here under this one round, so that way I have more control over the different dimensions that I can have for these rounds. Right now I'm just gonna go and add all these in. There are different things you can do if you when you get good. There's a kind of a round tool in the sketcher. You can just use that. There's also a chamfer tool in the sketcher, which is similar to a round, except it just kind of hacks it off instead of doing a round like that. There's different ways you can do this. I prefer to do it outside of the sketcher. I know it adds a bit of an extra step, but I like to keep things separated, so that way I have more control over what I'm going to do. So you can see right now I've changed that dimension to 1/4 of an inch on that round right there, so you can see. Let me do left side view of this, you can see how where were sharp corners are now nice rounded corners. Perfect. Alright, so those are our slots in the side rail. The only thing we have left to do is, remember, we always like to put in that pattern on the top for the hole mounts. So I'm going to do extrusion, just like before, sketch view, zoom in right here, circle, and if you've watched previous, you shouldn't remember this whole pattern. I like just to keep it memorized in the back of my mind, so that way I never really have to reference different things. I just kind of remember it. So it's 1/2 inch from the edge, and it is 1/4 inch in diameter. And make sure that you lock these dimensions. Complete the sketch through all. Remove material. Now notice nothing happens. I do need to flip it. So now you can see we have that hole going right there. We still need to pattern this, so remember we right click on here, pattern. There's also, you can click the extrusion and use the pattern tool up here. Direction, down the rail, so we pick this rail side right here. Notice that since I've started, it doesn't remember that dimension, but you should just remember at the back of your mind, it's just 1/2 inch to every hole. Now we just kind of guesstimate how many there'll be, so like 75. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 too much. So that's 67. Oops, didn't delete that enough. 67. You can kind of just move your mouse over top so you can see where that last hole is. Since this is just a flat rail, we don't need to do anything special with, clicking one to try and get it out. We can just leave them all in there. Check it, let it regenerate it. Okay. Alright, so this is the side rail, all nice and complete. Later, when we are in the assembly, we will put transmission mount holes down on this side, which is why I didn't do a pattern down this face, is because we're going to have to put new holes to mount the transmissions in. I will try to put step files up for the transmissions, that way you guys can just drop it in and we won't have to make that, because this is just learning Creo. We don't want to be doing crazy stuff like transmissions just yet. That'll be for an intermediate level tutorial after these ones. So thank you for listening, and the next one will be the front rail.